There is nothing worse than paying for an HVAC repair for it to just break down again, not long after. In today's video, I want to give you 10 reasons why HVAC systems might have continuous problems, right? And I'm not going to waste any time. Let's dive into it. Number one is poor knowledge of HVAC technicians. And I've made other videos causing me to not make many friends. And obviously this is going to be one of those videos. Folks don't like it when I call them out, but that is one of the biggest problems with our trade. HVAC technicians thinking they know it all. I can tell you that I have personally come in contact with some in the last year or so. They just don't want to learn. No matter how much you try to get them to learn certain things, it's just the writing's on the wall. And I just think that that's just something that needs to be called out right from the beginning. When you have technicians that are not trying to get the knowledge, our industry is changing, right? I don't care how long you've been doing this trade. That sometimes I'll talk to guys and they'll say, well, I've been doing this trade for 20 or 30 years. What do you mean there's new stuff to learn? There is new stuff to learn. I don't care how long you've been doing it. You are now behind the curve just by default. All technicians are behind the curve. There's new technologies, new refrigerants, tons of different things, and you are behind the curve unless you're not, unless you're being hungry and trying to get that knowledge. I'll go one step further than that, and it's not just the knowledge, but it's the tools as well. There are times when technicians are trying to repair systems and they don't even have the right tools to repair that system. How can you know that the gas pressure is right on a furnace if you don't even own a manometer, right? There's just no way to know. You're just guessing at that point. And as I go through the rest of our list here, I'm going to touch on other tools that technicians just either A, they don't own them, or B, they don't care to spend the money to own them to do things right. Stick around to the last of these 10 because I bet the last one will cause me to make more enemies than I ever have. And that's not my goal. When I make these videos, my goal is not to make enemies. It's just folks do not like being called out. Let's go ahead and jump to number 2. And this plays off of the technicians themselves, but it also is a little bit with homeowners. And that's because number 2 is when folks Bandaid repairs. When there is a problem with that system, and instead of coming up with a good long-term solution, a lot of folks will go with a more short-term fix, more Bandaid repair. And a lot of technicians will give homeowners the option. They'll say, hey, here's my options. Here's your good, better, best type deal. Good is just, getting it going. Better is maybe redoing this or that to make it better and hopefully not have more issues. Or the best might be completely redoing it, making it right, making it to where it just simply won't have any more problems, right? And I'm being vague. We're not getting too technical on that. But I think if you're a homeowner and a technician presents you with other options, then you do need to make an educated decision here. If you're not going to be living in the house much longer, you're going to be putting it on the market, then maybe I can understand why you're not looking to put a ton of money into a system that won't even belong to you in the future, even though the next homeowner would probably appreciate it if you were to do that. But if you are going to stay in the house for a while, then maybe you do need to go ahead and look at that long-term solution. What's the cost difference here if I go ahead and put a good investment into this system? How old is the system? What's the shape of that system? Will it continue to have problems even if we go with the long-term solution, or will we be replacing the system sometime soon anyway? And all of that should play into your decision making, I believe. Number 3 is poor sizing. It's something we see a lot in our industry. In fact, I've heard it said, I don't have any hard numbers, but just on my experience and many of the other HVAC technicians that I come in contact with, I think a lot of us agree that the majority, more than 50%, the majority of systems out there today are just simply not sized correctly. They're either undersized, oversized. Sometimes if they are sized properly, then the homeowner making upgrades to their house can affect that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't upgrade things in your house. You should just understand that if your system was sized for a larger application and then you go doing things to your house, making that system be oversized, such as upgrades to your home, making the envelope better, insulation, double pane windows, etc., all of those things play a role in what size that heating and air system should be. And what's cool is, for the first time ever, we just launched a video recently talking about this, and I'll just highlight it again, and that is for years, we've helped people on our website, and I've also talked to some of you where they would tell me horror stories about their system not being sized properly, and they said, what do we do? And I say, do a proper load calculation, and then they say, my HVAC company won't do that. I got multiple quotes, and none of them would properly do a load calculation, at least not up front. And so for the first time ever, we're able to hopefully fill that void. We've partnered with a company. If you go to the link in the description of this video, you can get a load calculation done. You just put your information in there and they'll be in the contact with you. Now, obviously it's not free, but it does put the cart behind the horse for once. Instead of putting the cart in front of the horse, you're able to get the load calculation done. And that way, all the quotes you get after that, if you're getting multiple quotes on HVAC systems, you can compare apples to apples because everyone has a proper load calculation to size everything off of. They're not just going by what was installed before, right? Assuming that the company that originally installed that system did everything right, most companies would assume wrong. So if that's something you're interested in, click the link in the description of this video and you'll be able to get a load calculation done. And not just the sizing of the system. Moving on to our next issue, our number 4 problem is improper ductwork, poor ductwork, whether it's the sizing, the installation, the corners cut, just overall sloppiness that we see. Folks don't realize that even just simply adding a bend to the ductwork or doing a square duct versus round duct, running it in the attic versus in the walls, all these things play a role in the ductwork. And it needs to be sized properly, it needs to be installed properly, it needs to be sealed properly. All of those things play a big role on whether or not your heating and air system is going to work properly and whether or not it's going to have breakdowns from time to time. We've done other videos on that. Ductwork is a big deal, and it's one of the things that we have to deal with here in North America that they just simply don't deal with in other countries. Other countries, they do ductless systems and they don't have to worry about these things. In America, we like our gas guzzling cars and we like our ducted HVAC systems. And so that stuff needs to be installed right. That stuff needs to be sized right. Number 5 is poor maintenance. Whether it's the homeowner not getting it maintained often enough, they're not having someone do periodic, annual, or some sort of regular maintenance to that system, but not just having it checked, actually having that system maintained and cleaned and made new again. And so it's not just on the homeowner, it's also back on those HVAC technicians. The homeowner may be doing everything they're supposed to. Shoot, they may be having semi-annual HVAC tune-ups and maintenances done to that system. Some companies coming out more than once a year, and then they still don't do proper maintenance to that system. I would argue that a proper maintenance to a system should not be taking less than 45 minutes, right? A good maintenance to that system, indoor and outdoor units, assuming it is a split system, taking covers off, cleaning everything, making sure everything is new again. I mean, most of those should take an hour to an hour and a half, if not more. If you have a company that's doing a maintenance and they're at your house for just 10 minutes, in my opinion, they did not do a thorough job of doing that maintenance. And that will cause you to have multiple breakdowns. When systems are dirty, if nothing else, they will have more issues. And before we go to number 6, if you could do me a favor, one thing that would help us is if you could click that like button. It helps our videos out. It helps us show up and help more folks, and I would really appreciate it. Number 6 is power issues. We're seeing more and more of those problems today, and a lot of folks would argue, hey, that's mostly because of the systems that we're having and installed today. They have more electronics. We have inverter systems. We have all these types of systems that they do not do well with dirty power, power surges, brownouts, all the different problems we have today. And I would pretty much agree with you on that. I'm sure this is magnified, this issue that we have today, but because it's magnified, because these issues can cause multiple failures, it's not just the equipment itself, it's really on the power companies. They really need to get this in check, because I can tell you, not to pick on anybody specific, but our local company to us, I have heard multiple instances in just the last year where companies are dealing with power coming into the home issues, whether it be extremely high voltage. That's the one I keep seeing. And the power company is like, oh, we're not going to do anything about it for this reason or that. I don't think there is a reason under the sun why they should not be able to provide you with a proper incoming voltage coming into your house. I don't care if it feeds multiple houses. I don't care if there's other reasons that they're doing that for one reason or another. That needs to be taken care of, in my opinion, coming in from the power company. But it's not just all on the power company. There are those other issues, whether it be storms or surges or things that are not weather related, other things like brownouts. And there's just an array of power issues that can cause problems, multiple problems with your HVAC system. You would not believe how many folks, when I'm helping them repair an HVAC system, I'll say, what's your incoming voltage? I don't even have to dive super deep into their problems and get super in and out of the complicated issues of an HVAC system, because we're able to knock it out in the first 10 seconds, because when we check that incoming voltage, we find problems. That's happened more than once, and it's just crazy to me. Number 7 of reasons you could have continuous issues is issues with the home. So issues that could be caused because of the home that HVAC system is located in. Now, I'm just going to highlight a couple. One of those being a home is continuously having different types of pests come into the home. That can cause problems with your HVAC system, among others. And I'm not going to get into like all the specifics, how an ant infestation could do these things, a rodent infestation could do those things, all these different issues that you could have, but just having pests in general come into the home that don't belong there can cause those sorts of problems. Other things being the insulation in the home, whether it's that it's become compromised, maybe it was never installed properly, et cetera, et cetera. If you've got a system that's maybe being overworked or whatever, adding to that insulation, or maybe it not ever being there. All of those things have their own challenges, and you got to make sure that whoever's doing those things, they understand those challenges. I remember we had a customer a few years ago that had a company that did a crawl space encapsulation, and that company did, they did an okay job on the. I'm not going to give credit where it isn't due, but we'll just say they did an okay job of encapsulating that crawl space. What they didn't do is think about all the array of issues that can cause, because they were just there to make a quick buck. And I'm not saying you shouldn't encapsulate a crawl space. I'm just saying that you need to make sure it's done properly from a moisture control standpoint, from a ventilation standpoint, and all of that. And so we'll get to both of those in just a moment, but I'll also bring up upgrades to the house, all play a role into this, and just homes in general, as time goes on, can cause different things to happen with HVAC systems. It's tough for homeowners sometimes, because unless the heating and air guy is well-versed, motivated to go through the rest of the house. I remember years ago when I would go into crawl spaces, I wouldn't just look at the HVAC system. I would just look for problems in general, like pests or electrical issues or insulation issues, whatever the issue is. And I would take pictures almost like a home inspector, because there were times when I was the only person that entire year that would be in that crawl space, right? Unless they got DirecTV coming next week, and they're not going to tell you anything, right? Not to pick on DirecTV, I just mean like a cable guy or whoever, and they don't take the time or have the motivation to tell the homeowner about something. There's a really good chance that HVAC technician or plumber or whoever is going to be the only person that is going to be in that area for that entire year. And so because of that, I would sometimes take pictures of things that had nothing to do with my work, just to say to the homeowner, here's something that jumped out at me, things that need to be addressed. And a lot of those things do play a role in whether or not an HVAC system could continuously have problems. And that leads me into number 8, because I brought up humidity control and ventilation, and both of those are probably overlooked way too often in our industry. I always joke that HVAC technicians should probably just be called HAC technicians and eliminate the V, because it's like they don't even understand what it stands for anyway. A lot of HVAC technicians have never even installed or worked on any type of ventilation. And to me, that's a problem. So if you've got an HVAC system that has had an issue or is continuously having issues. Maybe, just maybe, that homeowner is overworking that system because there's a poor humidity control aspect in that home, or we need to bring in fresh air and ventilation, and maybe that HVAC system is continuously having problems because of microbial growth in there because of poor ventilation or whatever. I'm just thinking out loud of some of the issues that I've dealt with over the years that could have been alleviated, if not at least helped, if they would have taken into account proper moisture control and proper ventilation into that home. Number 9 is a big one. Poor installation. We've done other videos on this. In fact, I did an entire series in our playlist on our YouTube channel that you can go to, and I go through all the different things that a HVAC company installs a system that could cause that system to continue to have problems for years to come, but just poor installation of that system. I've said it before, a lot of the problems that heating and air systems do have, even years later, can a lot of times be directly related right back to what I call the birth date, the installation of that system, because a corner was cut or because that technician didn't dial it in properly with the proper tools. And I touched on manometers earlier, making sure gas pressures are set right, making sure that static pressures are right on ductwork, making sure that the furnace gets a proper combustion analysis, making sure all of these things that should be done on the installation of that system. A lot of these companies are charging a lot of money to install that equipment, and then still they're just putting a box in, and they're not really taking the time to dial that system in properly. And again, I know I don't make a lot of friends when I say those things, but it's usually the guys that don't do things properly that seem to have a problem with it, because most of the guys that do things right, they're right there with me. They agree with me, and they say, yeah, those guys are making us all look bad. So I'm not saying they're all bad apples. There's some good apples out there. I'm just saying that this is a big enough issue that it's causing folks to continue to have problems. And finally, number 10, and this is the one I said I might make a few more enemies than normal, but I do think that it should be noted, especially in today's climate when we're seeing houses be built every day, and that is poor planning or installation of the home itself. And I can tell you that the majority, now I'm not saying all, but I can say that the majority, and if not all, builders that I've come in contact with, they are all about the bottom dollar. They all say the same thing. They'll all say, I'm the best at what I do, and I don't cut corners, and my stuff is just top notch. And then you start getting into the nitty gritty of how to actually install some of this stuff properly, and you find out that the majority, if not all of them, are just saying that because it makes them feel good, because it's just simply not true. In fact, I have worked with builders before, builders that have built lots of houses, and you start asking them questions like, is there a proper load calculation being done with this house? And they'll say, oh, well, I'll give you the prints, right? That's what they all used to say to me. Well, I'll give you the prints. Well, okay, but what about doing things right here? Are we going to do a manual J, manual D, manual S, all of those things? And they would say, well, yeah, I want you to do that. I want you to do it for free. Huh? And that's a whole nother topic for another video. But the point here is those guys want bottom dollar everything. And because of that, they usually get bottom dollar work and bottom dollar companies. I'm not here to trying to start a fight. If you're one of the ones that does things properly, you shouldn't have a problem with me saying those things. It's the folks that do have a problem with me saying that, you're probably the problem, right? It's not just the sizing, it's not just the installation, but looking at other things like the house itself. If you're building a house, maybe zoning is appropriate in this situation. Oh, well, that costs more money. Well, yeah, it does, but we're going to do it right? Maybe this house, maybe it might be better if we do more of a VRV type system. Maybe this house might make more sense to do a ductless mini split. And you might say, well, this is a big, beautiful house. I don't want something hanging on the wall. Yeah, it doesn't have to be. There's other options out there. It's not just the ones that hang on the wall. There's many types of mini splits that are out there. Maybe that house is going to have the ductwork in the attic, and that adds to the load calculation, and just getting it out of the attic and coming up with one of these newer type of solutions and technologies may have a system that doesn't require as large of a system, doesn't require as large of a utility bill for the future homeowner, and doesn't require as much, say, ventilation and moisture control, because you're installing a much better system in that home. But at the end of the day, again, That's just not what we're seeing. We're seeing so many folks cut corners, and who ends up paying for it? It's the homeowner. It's the homeowner that continues to have problems. And then that homeowner that just paid $1,000 for that repair, there's something else wrong 6 months later, and they want to blame it on that HVAC company and say, oh, you know, you're just taking money from me. This system just continuously has problems. And in reality, maybe, just maybe, it's one of the problems with one of the other things on our list of 10 that I just gave you. Now, let me ask you this. Did I miss one? Do you know something, maybe an issue that someone has had or you have had, and we didn't cover it in this video? I'd love to hear about that. Leave me a comment down below. If you like this video, I think you'll like this one even more. It's where I talk about the biggest mistake homeowners make when replacing an HVAC system. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.